What is up, everybody? It is I, Ronin, and today I'm coming at you with a learning how to play for a deck that I could have sworn I did do at some point, but I guess not. And after playing this, I kind of see why. So, before we really jump into this, before we really get into the meat of it, just in case you're unaware, I'm going to explain what a Gemini monster is. So, Gemini monsters are a concept, I believe it was like mid 5Ds era. It was before I started really playing seriously. But the idea behind the Gemini monsters is that you would summon them in the graveyard and on the field. They don't have their effects. Then you normal summon them again, and you get their effects. You know, obviously Gemini being sort of like a duality thing, they have a non-effect and effect side. Generally speaking, that sounds pretty cool, because at that point it's kind of like, oh, I have these Gemini monsters, and usually they had some pretty powerful effects. So it was one of those things where it's like they could print a more powerful effect on a card because, you know, at that point, the card is harder to utilize. That was the idea. The idea didn't work. It was impossible to get anything really going with the Gemini monsters. There were a few support cards and spells and stuff, but nothing that really made them so super good. So it was a failed experiment, but Konami, as with everything, in terms of legacy support, they will try to fix their old, missteps, I guess, and thus, chemicritters were born. So, chemicritter is a deck of Gemini monsters of varying attribute and type. And their effects are actually really, really good if you do use them and can get them. However, they're very hard to get, and a lot of the stuff around them supporting them is rough, them living and dying by their field spell, as is the case with many decks. However, let's go ahead and jump right into it, starting with the monster lineup. So, since I already explained the Gemini effect, I will not be going over them, and how I will only be going over their sort of effects that they gain after being Gemini summoned. So, of the low-level chemicritters, which, you want as many as possible, you have three. You have your Oxyox, your Carbo Crab, and your Hydron Hawk. So, starting with Oxyox, during the main phase, it lets you special summon a Gemini monster from your hand, and it becomes the level of that Gemini monster. Well, all Gemini monsters become the summon monsters level, is a hard once per turn. Carbo Crab is a Foolish of a Gemini monster and a Search of a Gemini monster, also a hard once per turn. And Hydron Hawk lets you discard a card, then revive a Gemini monster from the grave in defense position, also a hard once per turn. So with chemicritters, all the low-level ones are honestly incredible. Like a Foolish and a Search is a super powerful effect, getting able to just pull something out and, sort of change levels makes for some pretty awesome Xyz plays for Oxyox. And Hydron Hawk is just really great recovery, honestly. However, now we get into the high-level chemicritters, the polychemicritters, and they're kind of meh overall, but let's go over them, starting with Hydreigon. When another Gemini monster is normal summoned while it has its effect, it gains 500. That monster will gain 500 attack and defense, so kind of makes some beaters. And it makes it so that if a Gemini monster you control be destroyed by a card effect, you can instead destroy another card you control. Surprising synergy, but we'll go over that later. Then we have Polychemicritter Dioxogre. When it has its effects, the normal summon of Gemini monsters cannot be negated, and once per turn, you can banish a Gemini from the grave to target and pop something your opponent controls. So not bad, really, not bad. The only Gemini monster that isn't a chemicritter we have in this deck is Darkstorm Dragon. When it has its effect as a once per turn, you can send a face-up spell trap you control to the grave to heavy storm the field. So it's pretty good, especially when there are certain things you don't need, as well as other synergies, which we can go over now because I want to talk about Supervise. So Supervise is a pretty neat equip spell. It only equips to a Gemini monsters, and it gives its effects. However, what makes it relevant is that when it is sent face up from the field to the grave, you can target a normal monster in the grave and special summon it, and all Gemini monsters are treated as normal monsters, so it's like an extender, a way to recover. It's honestly just really good. Not every variant of chemicritters runs it, but I like it because you can send it from field to graveyard by tributing it for your Darkstorm, popping it with your High Dragon, or just going into a Link monster and getting a monster back, or going into a Xyz if you have some graveyard setup to get yourself another monster to possibly make something else. So, all in all, pretty cool card. Now, though, we're going to talk about the catalyst of the chemicritter deck, Catalyst Field. So, it is a field spell, and I'm going to read it verbatim here, because I feel like it's important to understand it, because this is what the deck relies on. Each turn, one level 5 or higher Gemini monster you normal summon can be summoned without tributing. That lets you go ahead and put out your high-level Gemini monsters onto the field for free. Already pretty cool. During your main phase, you can normal summon one Gemini monster in addition to your normal summon/set. You can only use this effect once per turn. This lets you normal summon a Gemini monster, and then if you use the effect to normal summon again, the higher level ones not really costing tributes in this case, that means they automatically have their effects. So that is pretty great. Then, once per turn, you can target one card your opponent controls. Banish one Gemini monster you control that is treated as an effect monster and has gained its effects, and until your end phase, and if you do, you destroy the card you targeted. So, it lets you get your effects and its removal, and it works with itself. So if you open with this and a Gemini monster, you have potential plays. This field spell is incredible. It makes the deck work and puts it on par with anything else that already has their effects ready to go. So, obviously, you run as many copies of it as possible. As such, we have a copy of Terraforming to search it, as well as the new support card, Dimir Synthesis, is a Rota-ish card for chemicritter. So, it will either add a Catalyst Field from your deck to your hand, or will add Burnout, a trap that I'll go over in a second here, as well as a chemicritter monster from your deck to your hand. Lots of searching. It also has a graveyard effect that lets you target 2 face-up monsters you control, including a Gemini monster that's gained its effect, and it allows you to transfer one monster's attack points to the other, however, the monster that gets drained does go to 0. Each effect is a hard once per turn. So honestly, really good. It lets you search out your play starters, because if you can, as well as your Catalyst Field, because if you can open Catalyst Field, Oxyox, and a level 8 Gemini, you can actually make quite a few plays. However, now let's go ahead and go over Burnout in order to understand fully what's going on here. So Burnout, normal trap, lets you banish a face-up chemicritter monster from your field in order to special summon 2 chemicritter monsters from the deck with different names. And as a graveyard effect, except the turn it was sent to the grave, you can banish it when you are directly attacked, at which point you can special summon a banished Gemini monster from your grave. And it becomes an effect monster and gains its effects if summoned this way. So, it's a hard once per turn. It's fine. Like, you can run it at 2 or free. I like running it at 2 because its recovery is very specific. Almost saying that you would have to use Burnout itself to do it, or maybe I guess you could have banished something off of your Diox Ogre. But 1 or 2, or 2 are free. 1 if you're feeling risky. 2 are free, though, is usually better because with Dimir Synthesis, the monster search effect also requires that you search Burnout. So, run it at least 2 is my recommendation. We also, in order to get to our field spell, have a copy of Metaverse because we want that. We run a lot of level 8s that can potentially break the hand, so trade-in was a decision. I would say you could probably replace this with something just because the potential bricks of empty hand draw into trade-in, but it's not awful. There's things that like discard in the deck, so it can work. We also have our Pot of Disparity, which is, We have it because we want to look at the top 6 cards of the deck in order to specifically search out Catalyst Field or a way to get to Catalyst Field. So it is a little bit better, obviously, looking for specific cards. Called by the Grave because hand traps suck. We have Infinite Permanence as a generic sort of hand trappy thing. And then the final card in the main deck we have is Gemini Ablation, which is a pretty cool continuous trap. During the main phase, you can discard a card to activate one of these effects. The second effect isn't really relevant to us, so I'll be going over the first one only. Special summon a Gemini monster from the deck as an effects monster that's gained its effects. So, you have the ability to run a lot of 1-ofs, which is the same reason we can run our Darkstorm Dragon at 1, because we can just summon it from deck if we have to, with its effects. So, pretty cool. Now, though, to move on to the extra deck, which is a lot more complex than you might think. This deck is primarily a Xyz deck, and therefore is good at making several pretty strong Xyz monsters. Mostly rank 8s. So let's go over them now. We have our Thunder and Dragon, which requires 2 level 8 normal monsters. By detaching one, it just blows up every monster on the field. So pretty neat. We have our Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, which we have just in case we want to get rid of some battle phase shenanigans. We have Hope Harbinger Titanic Galaxy in order to put up potential negates for spell cards at least. We have our Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, which is a pretty cool way to steal monsters. 2 of the chemicritter boss monster, Vala chemicritter Mephidraco. When it's Xyz summoned, it lets you target a Gemini monster from the grave and special summon it. And while it has Xyz material, monsters your opponent control cannot target Gemini monsters you control for attacks and nor effects. Also, when a Gemini monster is normal summon while it's on the field, you can detach a material from itself, and you force your opponent to send 1 card from their hand or field to the graveyard. It's their choice. So I didn't really have time to do proper testing with all of this. However, the only real change I would make to this deck right now is cut Vala chemicritter Mephidraco to 1 and replace it with Sky Cavalry Centauria or any other generic rank 2, which you'll see reasons why in a second, but you'll see. We also have Draglubian, requires 2 level 8s, lets you cheat out a dragon number, which is the reason we're able to run things like Numeron Dragon, as well as any of the other number dragons, because we can cheat them out, which is pretty cool. Also, we can rank up into Cypher Blade, which is just like basically a pop if you rank it up through Cypher Dragon, and Zeus, because we make a lot of Xyz monsters with this deck, and Zeus is great. The only real level 2 Xyz we have in the deck currently is Totally Awesome, because Carbo Crab is a aqua monster, so you can make it and it recycles itself, so you only really need it at 1. Beyond that, though, we have our standard Boral Sword Dragon, in case we get a bunch of monsters on the field, and our Nightmare package for removal. Now moving on to the side deck, we have some obvious generic picks, such as Feather Duster for spell trap heavy matchups, Lightning Storm for generally going second, Raigeki for generally going second, Forbidden Droplet because there are actually several cards where like it's a good thing to put things into the graveyard and it's just decent removal. Beyond that, though, we have 2 more Darkstorm Dragon in case we really need to deal with spell traps, 2 copies of Heavy Knight of the Flame, which I honestly just think is a pretty fun Gemini monster. Its effect makes it so that at the start of the damage step, if it battles a special summon monster, you can banish that monster, so it's kind of like a miniature worse, I guess, construct in that way. It's just a kind of neat card. I like it, but you could definitely replace this one with any other 2 things. Now, though, and these are for instance, we have Dragluian and Mannequin Cat. So let's go over Mannequin Cat first. It's a generic rank 2, and with its effect, you can attach a material from itself to target a monster in the opponent's grave to special summon it to your opponent's field, and if that monster has the same type as a monster in your graveyard, you are able to special summon a monster of that type from your graveyard. It also makes it so that you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Well, yeah. This is relevant because obviously Dragon Link is pretty powerful at the moment. We run several high-level dragons in our deck, so that's a way to get to them, which is just a pretty neat interaction with the rest of the game. We also have Dragluian because Dragon Link, again, very powerful, and this is kind of like a very dragon-centric card, but I'm going to go over it real fast. So it requires 2 level 8 dragons, which we have access to. And once per turn, if you control no other monsters, you can attach an Xyz material to activate one of these effects. You can special summon a dragon from your hand, target a dragon your opponent controls and steal it, or target a dragon your opponent controls and its effects cannot be activated until the end of your opponent's turn, which is actually really cool. So definitely only keep it at 1 in the extra deck, or the side deck, but against a dragon-centric deck, it can be pretty cool. But yeah, all that being said, that's basically the whole deck. If you're new here, we just from here go over a replay or two. I show you what I liked, what I didn't like, what I thought could be better, what I thought was neat, etc., and so forth. And yeah, all that being said, I'll see you guys in the replays. Alright people, welcome to the first replay with Ranatos. We are Tab as per usual, and we are playing against a Pacifist deck, which is a pretty interesting build if you haven't seen it, but you'll see it in a second here, I guess. And yeah, we are going first as is sort of our preference with this deck. And I'm about to show you guys the sort of ideal play, and ooh, that's a little loud, isn't it? That's probably better. Okay, so we start by activating our Dimir Synthesis because we already have our Catalyst Field. We are going to be searching a monster as well as our Burnout. At which point we're going to activate our Catalyst Field, summon chemicritter Carbo Crab. Then we're going to normal summon a Carbo Crab again to activate its effect, which is going to be a Foolish and a Search. So we Foolish our Hydreigon and then we are going to search our Hydron Hawk. At which point we're going to set a couple cards face down and end our turn. We're fine here because if our opponent pops the Catalyst Field, we have the Metaverse to go off of, as well as a way to trade into more powerful monsters during our turn with the Burnout. Thankfully, our Crab applies, so we're pretty good here. However, it's now going on to our opponent, who is going to start by just setting 4. Pretty good. Pretty alright. Then it's going back to us, and we're going to draw another Dimir Synthesis. Going to go ahead and activate Crab's effect to Foolish and search once more. He's going to Metaverse for his Pacific City, which is basically the choke point of his whole deck. And we're going to go ahead and search our Diox Ogre. At which point we're going to activate our Dimir Synthesis again in order to get yet another search for another Oxyox as well as Burnout. At which point the Pacific is going to activate, summoning a token and giving him a search. He's going to go ahead and search the one that pops, the Spiral Battle. At which point we're going to summon our Oxyox, and then we're going to normal summon Oxyox again, which will let us summon our Diox Ogre from the hand, turning all of our Geminis into level 8 monsters. From there we're going to overlay into Mephdrago, at which point Mephdrago would normally allow us to revive another level 8 so we can make another rank 8 play. However, our opponent is going to Torrential Tribute, blowing up everything. So we're just going to set our last Burnout and pass turn, but I play Was a Brew in there. Anyways, now our opponent's turn is going to summon their Shell Dragon, which will get them another search off of Pacifist. Is going to go ahead and search the Equip spell, which will let him summon the Phantasm Spiral Dragon from the deck or hand after battling. Equipping it to the normal monster and going into battle, deal a little damage, summon that from his hand. At which point, though, we are unfortunately forced to discard something, so we discard the Oxyox because we already have the Hydron Hawk for recovery. And then it is on to us, so we're going to draw a Terraform, which we'll go ahead and activate to go ahead and get another Catalyst Field just to be safe. Then our opponent is unfortunately going to get their token because they didn't have one in a search. However, even though normally the Phantasm Spiral Battle Traps can be activated while you just control normal monsters, he has no open spell trap zones, so he's going to have to clear those out before he does anything. May is going to search what's basically like an infinite impermanence for this deck. Then we're going to activate the Dimir Synthesis to go ahead and search another Catalyst Field, our opponent chooses to clear out their spell trap zone there by using the Solemn Judgment, which is pretty fine for us because at that point we're just going to summon our Hydron Hawk. Then he's going to activate this Tenyi card that lets him, like, I think it just lets him search a worm or summon a worm. So he's going to be summoning another Spiral Dragon, which does clear out his token, which will give him the potential to get another token. However, we're going to then activate our Catalyst Field in order to get our Hydron Hawk's effects, discarding the last Catalyst Field to go ahead and summon the Oxyox, which point he is going to get another token, unfortunately. Then we're going to misplay here, because I misunderstood how that effect worked here, unfortunately, so that is on me. However, so they're going to trade attacks, so we're just going to activate the Burnout to bring out 2 more monsters. 2 level 8s, which we're going to overlay into to make Draglubian. Hopefully to summon another rank 8 dragon from the deck. Our Numeron dragon, as our opponent did, just reduce their life points by quite a bit. So try to go for the kill here. However, our opponent's going to Torrential again and Spiral Battle in order to pop the Catalyst Field. At which point we are going to chain our Metaverse in order to search another Catalyst Field, not activate it. So we search it. Our opponent's going to Torrential Tribute, blow up everything. Then he is going to get a token because Pacifist. And things are looking a little tight at this point. So our opponent's going to go ahead and banish that to search the Tenyi counter trap. Set it, go in for a bit of damage, which will let us activate our Burnout, summoning the Hydron Hawk. Then reactivating the Burnout that's on our field to get 2 more monsters. Neither of which our opponent will be able to beat over, so he just attacks into it to... Now, this might actually seem like a weird play, but I do think I see what the opponent was doing here. Pacifist only lets you make tokens if you don't have a token. So, the hope that he has here is I activate a card effect, at which point you'll make a token, which will give him another search, probably for another Spiral Battle. That's what I imagine the thought process here was. So it's not a bad move, actually. However, our opponent's just going to set the Spiral Power and pass turn, at which point we're just going to go ahead and re-normal summon our Diox Ogre, use this effect to banish the Oxyox in order to pop the Pacifist, so even though we activated a effect, he will not get his token, at which point we activate the Catalyst Field, which is going to give us yet another normal summon for our Carbo Crab. Then we're going to activate the Dimir Symphysis, transferring Carbo Crab's attack power to Diox Ogre, which will make Diox Ogre 35 and big enough to put an end to this game. And that's basically how the deck does. It just tries to make Xyz monsters while having Catalyst Field. Unfortunately, it is a little slow, but it's not bad. And in order to show some of the deck's problems, you'll be jumping into the next replay, and I'll see you guys there. Okay, welcome to the second replay with Bob Ross, who is playing Ultrageist, so you know, that's a deck that still exists. And we are going to go ahead and jump right in there. So, we are going first. We activate our Paw of Disparity, banishing 6 in order to check out the top 6 cards of our deck, going ahead and adding the Oxyox to hand, which we will be using to make a rank 8, potentially. So we're going to summon the Oxyox, activate Supervise so it gets its effects, at which point we activate Oxyox's effect in order to summon the Hydreigon from our hand, turning Oxyox into a level 8, at which point we overlay into Titanic Galaxy. We could have gone to Draglubian here in order to then make Titanic Galaxy. However, I was worried that would be overextending, and that's more or less the turn 1 play for this deck. Supervise doesn't really activate because we didn't have a monster, and that's all we can do. That's our play. So our opponent obviously setting that big board. Thankfully, we do have the Darkstorm Dragon in hand, and the Catalyst Field as well now, so we're going to be able to sort of blow that back, which we will do. Hitting a lot of stuff and going to be attacking over the Sequidius. Unfortunately, our opponent is going to get the Ultrageist Manifestation back, and then we're going to attack again, which they'll use Manifestation to get the Protocol back. So they're basically set up as much as they need to be. And seeing that they are a trap-heavy deck, and, you know, Titanic Galaxy only really works with spells, I went ahead and just went into Zeus. However, it's now going to our opponent's turn, who's going to draw, just set a few traps. And another misplay on my part here, because, wow, I did a lot of misplays in this, getting the videos. Should have done this in the end phase. All there is to it. I should have done that in the end phase. Just blow up the field in the end phase. I don't know why I didn't. I was just being completely dumb. And it is unfortunately going to give our opponent the chance to banish the manifestation to get the protocol back and reset those two. One of those was a mystery to me at this point, so I didn't want to... I was worried about what that other unknown could have been, and I didn't want to trigger anything necessarily with like a normal summon in case they had like a torrential tribute possibly. So I chose not to summon Hydron Hawk here and just stuck with Zeus. Then that is going to be our turn. Our opponent's going to go ahead and set a Storming Mirror Force, at which point I draw the Ablation, which is pretty cool, and was going to try to attack for game here. Unfortunately, our opponent did get a very good top deck in that Storming Mirror Force. So we're just going into the battle phase, try to attack for game. We get Storminged. Unfortunate. Set the Ablation, and then they're going to draw the Marionetter, and Ultrageist is back online, boys. So we're going to go ahead and use the Ablation in order to summon our Diox Ogre just to have a body on board, and I didn't want the Ablation getting negated. Exactly. So our opponent is going to go ahead and get a set from deck off the Marionetter. Then Marionetter is going to trade out the Sequidius, as like so. At which point Sequidius is going to bounce the protocol to bounce our Diox Ogre, resetting the protocol. And at this point, this is where the deck struggles, because in a battle of building a board, it doesn't really. It does not. So we're going to go ahead and try to activate our Ablation again. He's going to get the Manifestation, which will give him a target to bounce with Sequidius, which will give him like a summon, and like basically the loop has begun. He has started looping because Manifestation still revives even if it leaves the field mid-resolve. These can get the Foolish, which is just... At this point, it's basically game, and I will explain the problem with this deck, which is it can't really recover. It doesn't usually put more than 1 or 2 monsters on board at a time, so against a single consistent piece of removal, like Sequidius, it genuinely has a difficult time. Of course, that's why there are those side deck options, but doesn't help in single games, really. And we're just going to let this play out, but essentially at this point, we're just not able to get anything going again, and it's just bad times for us. So at this point, I'm just trying to defend. Maybe I draw into some sort of bomb here. And our opponent's just building their board, at which point they're just going to link into Masquerain, into the Avramax, and just start attacking, really. And this is game right here, I believe. And yeah, that's game. So, final thoughts on chemicritter. I think it's okay. Like, it's not great. It's not super good or anything, but it's okay at the very least. It's a pretty neat way to make rank 8s. I think Catalyst Field is an incredible card, as well as the fact that a lot of the lower level chemicritters are just like generic Gemini support. So as a dedicated deck, I don't think they're good, but I do think as a whole they have potential. I think. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the deck. Is there anything I could improve, anything I did well, any decks you want to see me play maybe? Always looking for suggestions. But yeah, all that being said, like if you liked, comment if you have something to say, and subscribe if you want some more. This has been Ronin, signing off.